Hey everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. You're in my corner and I have a very special guest in the corner. Would you like to unveil your secret identity?
Oh, wouldn't you like that? My name is Kevin T. Collins, and I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. It's great to get a chance to talk with you. I grew up with a lot of the shows that you were in, so
Oh, did you?
yeah, actually, it's
That makes me old then, right?
no, I, I got into shows pretty young, due to my dad. So that's just
Right.
kind of the way it was. But everybody made fun of me because when we were talking about the schedule for the week, I was like, oh, he's the guy in Magic, Users Club, and everyone's like, Berserk, hello, and I was like, well, okay. that
That's hilarious.
Well, it's just I watched that first. I'm familiar with Berserk, of course. I love it, but it was just funny to me because
Well,
that's what I gravitated to.
well, you can watch Magic Users Club a little bit earlier in life than you can watch Berserk, hopefully.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to sit your 6-year-old down and watch Berserk. That's going to be a little traumatizing, I feel.
You just a smidget.
Yeah, just a tiny bit of nightmares and horribleness.
Well, since this is your first time on the show, I like to ask a very super obvious question that I'm sure you've answered 1,000 times. But so our
Sure.
audience is aware, what sparked your interest into acting?
Oh boy, it bit me early actually. I was 6 years old and sitting in the back of my parents' car singing along to John Denver songs, and my mother decided that I was singing along better than most 6-year-olds. So she took me to an audition for a community theater production of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and I got the role of the prince and got a taste for applause and laughter and making people laugh, and that was kind of it. So from age 6 on, this is pretty much what I wanted to do. Not pretty much. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to tell stories.
So, when you were growing up, did you focus on getting into theater or improv or?
Well, I grew up in Northern California, so there were a lot of community theaters, which was great, but there wasn't a lot of film or anything like that. And obviously, I wasn't auditioning for Broadway shows because I didn't live in New York. And so yeah, I was into theater all the way through college. I went to NYU for theater, and then actually, weirdly, because it's the reason we're talking to each other today, it was voiceover that was my first paying job out of college. The first thing that I ever got that paid any money was doing things like Magic Users Club.
And what's really interesting too, when you were in voiceover, is that anime voiceover was still kind of not as common. It was still a time where some people were trading VHSs to watch anime.
I'm sure. I mean, I am absolutely certain that I didn't even know what anime was when Michael Sinter-Nicholas came to me and said, "Hey, you want to do some anime?" I'm certain of it. I didn't even know what it was, but it's been very good to me, and I've been able to play some wonderful characters and tell some really interesting stories throughout. What is the start of my career?
So I have to ask because
Yeah.
in terms of tech, when it comes to voiceover, it's changed so drastically. People have home studios now, and the you can just go get a microphone off of Amazon, which was a little bit harder. But when you started, were you guys recording to tape, or how were you guys recording?
No, I mean, I really started in about 2001, so it was already digital.
Hmm.
I never did anything to tape. Although people did not have home studios in that day, I do now. But in that day, you went to a studio, like I went to NYAV Post, and that's where I started my work. And I hung out with Michael Sinter-Nicholas and the other people who directed me there, and that's the way it worked. And now it's like, if somebody has something for me, I could be doing it at home and just sending it to them. It's a vastly different world for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of insane to hear that, a lot of voice actors, when they're going to conventions or events or whatnot, they're still doing auditions sometimes with their phone, just to send it in.
Yeah, I used to do it with my phone, and then people just kept telling me how bad that I sounded. So now I just fire up the booth. And, you know, I have a booth in my house, which is, so, you know, I was just being lazy. But yeah, some people do it. Yeah.
Well, you know, every time you go inside, well, depending on your setup, every time you go into the booth, if you're in there for too long, it's like you're in a sauna. So,
True, yeah, I have a vent in my booth, but an audio guru of mine recently told me I shouldn't use it because it's messing up my audio. So, yeah, it definitely lacks oxygen.
well, if I recall correctly, you have experience with audiobooks too, don't you?
Yeah, I'm nearing 300 books actually. That's mostly how I make my living is doing audiobooks. Yeah.
So I imagine when you're sitting down, you're recording for 3, 5, 7 hours for an audiobook, and you're just like, I need to breathe. I need to get out of the booth.
Yeah, yeah, they're long days for sure. I mean, I'm very lucky now that I have the booth in the house that I can do it, you know, more like 2.5, 3 hours a day instead of, you know, when you go to a place and you do a book somewhere, yeah, you're in there for 6 hours, and those days are just hard. You know, they're hard vocally, they're hard mentally, and you know, it just takes a lot out of you, and so I'm lucky that I have the setup that I have now, and I can just, you know, kind of do it whenever.
And different audiobooks, they call for different things. Like some are just straight narration, and some they want you to play every single character and give every single character a voice. And so I
Yeah.
can imagine that just, you know, going at it for so many hours is just difficult.
Yeah, it is, and that's, you know, that's part of the vocal exhaustion of it is, you know, if you're changing your voice all the time and then you're doing this guy and those people are talking to each other, like that's just not something that your vocal cords are necessarily like designed to do, especially for 6 hours in a day. So yeah, it's tough. I mean, I did a series of books that had 400 characters in it, and you know, you try your best to make them all sound unique, but you know, you're one person, and you know, you do your best.
Gosh, do you have to take notes in case any of those characters show up again?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. You have to keep notes, especially if you're doing an ongoing series. You know, like I've got a bunch of series that are ongoing. If I don't keep notes, you know, I would have to go back and re-listen to what I did, and that, you know, that's hours. You know, a book could be 10, 20, 30 hours long, and you know, who has that kind of time in this day and age? So, yeah, you have to keep really good notes.
Well, I think that's awesome for a lot of the fans to hear. Obviously, we have a lot of voice actors to be in the audience,
Sure.
but I'm sure my anime fans will come after me with pitchforks if I don't ask you about your experience on Berserk. And I don't want to get harmed after this interview. So.
No, you don't want to be pitchforked. It's not worth it. Yeah, Berserk was it's such a special part of my career because, you know, I can't tell you the number of times that I've been on you know, working on a film set or a TV set or um, teaching in a classroom, and I mention anime or anime comes up and I mention Berserk, and I cannot tell you the number of people in the number of places I've come across where they're like, you were in Berserk? I mean, they're just absolutely astounded by it. It's just such a loved series, and you know, now it's a franchise, but yeah, it's probably what I'm best known for in any area of my career. I mean, you know, I've done things on TV, and I've done things, you know, in the movies, and I've done things in audiobooks, and I've done stuff in cartoons. But that's the thing that, you know, the subset of people that watch anime, they know that show and they love that show, and it's it's very humbling to have been part of that, and to have been part of it twice, really, because, you know, I did the first series, you know, when I was maybe 22 or 23 years old. And then 10 years later, I got a chance, which you never ever get, which is to go back and do the same role again in the trilogy of movies, with 10 years more experience as a dubber and as an actor, and 10 years more life experience as a human, and to get to play the same character and tell the same story better than you could tell it before. I think that's my opinion. Such a gift. It was such a gift.
Now, when you knew you were going to be a part of the movies, did you have any expectations you had on yourself about what you wanted to do with your performance?
No, I really didn't because, I never stopped training as an actor in those 10 years. I was always, and, I had teachers and I was taking classes and I knew I was a better actor than I had been. And I knew that if I went in there and did what I could do at 34 or 32, that it was going to turn out to be a really rewarding experience for me as an actor, and B, I think a really good finished product in terms of the voice acting. Not to toot my own horn or anything, people may have hated it, I don't know, but I wasn't nervous at all. I was just excited, and Sinter Nicholas got like the entire cast practically back together to do it. And, that doesn't mean everything because, of course, you're in a room by yourself acting and you're not necessarily even hearing anybody else. But it was really a special thing. It was like it's like a reunion. You're the only one there. It's a weird thing to explain.
Well, no, I can kind of understand. And I'm sure
Yeah,
working with Senator Nicholas was always fun. He's got
we
boundless energy.
we have a great time, and he's a really good friend of mine. And like I said, he found me. I did a one man show at NYU my fourth year, where I played the good and evil sides of myself, and he came and saw it. I don't know why, but he did, and he was there seeing these one man shows, and he saw me do it, and he was like, "I love this evil Kevin, that you do. Would you come and do some anime?" And like I said, that was the first job I ever got. And, I credit him partly for even keeping me in this business because a lot of times actors will get out of acting school and they won't work and they don't audition for whatever reason. And then 2 years later, they're not actors, they're something else. And it's happened to more people than I can count. So I think, having that outlet for creativity, for acting, was part of the reason that kept me hungry and kept me in it. And you're right. He does have boundless energy, and he's a hoot to be around. And I love him. I really do.
That's fantastic to hear. For the listeners that want to, see you in other material, not just focused on anime, are there any projects
Yeah.
coming out soon or anything that recently came out that you'd like to promote?
Well, let's see. I always like to mention my music because, and fans of Berserk know about my music because of the outtakes. But, I always love to sing on the outtakes and, not make up funny songs, but use, funny songs that didn't fit with what was going on the screen. And I'm a singer-songwriter in addition to everything else that I do. And I put out an album a couple of years ago called In Between that I'm extremely proud of, and I would love people to go check it out because it kind of tells the story of a relationship from beginning to ending to like re-beginning, and it's like everything that I do. It's about stories. It's just about telling stories, and so I love to talk about that. I also have an EP that's going to be released maybe this year, maybe next year, called It's Only Life, which is just 4 or 5 songs. So, keep your eyes peeled for that. What else? I just shot an episode of Quantico, the show on ABC. I mean, it's like a minuscule little part, but you could check me out. I think it's episode 8 of this season, season 3. I play a morgue technician, of all things. And what else? That's kind of what I got going on. You can check out my books. I've always got tons of books coming out, and I've actually done a lot of directing in the last couple of years. So I've been directing cartoons and audiobooks, and I had a web series for a while that I directed. So there's a couple of my cartoons that are on Netflix you could check out. One is called Super 4, which is based on the Play School line of toys. And then there's another one called Seven and Me, which is a hybrid show with half real people and half cartoons about the 7 dwarfs living with a young Snow White. So that's fun, and I'm actually in both of the shows as well. So I direct them and I'm in them. So you could check those out. Those are fun. That's about all I got.
Well, I mean, that must be a challenge in itself to be a director and also be an actor in the media that you're directing.
You might think so, but for the past 10 years, I've been directing myself in audiobooks, which is as pure as you can get in terms of storytelling. Like, that's what you're doing. You're sitting in a chair, you're not moving, and with your voice, you're telling a story. And you're telling a story from beginning to end that could be 30 hours long. So, after I directed myself in all of those, and having directed myself on film in the web series that I did called Gray Matters, which you can also check out. It's a great show. Lasted 2 seasons, but it's actually so effortless for me to direct myself. I already know the story because I've prepped it as the director, and then I know the characters because I've auditioned for them and gotten them, and then you just go in there and you lay one down and you take a listen, and if it sounds like what you want it to sound like, you move on. And it's very simple. It's different when you're doing it on film. I found that's much different because then you have to stop and watch it back, which takes longer. So I've actually found it's fun, and it's just you and the engineer, and you're just having a good time.
I imagine it would be more difficult on film too, just due to the fact that at least from what I've been told, film is way more subtle than a lot of voiceover.
Yeah, voiceovers, cartoons, they can be pretty broad, but yeah, it's interesting because when you're directing a film or a web series or a television show or anything like that, you're thinking about, there's so many moving parts, and you're not just thinking about, oh, how does this line sound and does it match the flap? And that's often the 2 most important things you're thinking about when you're either voice acting or directing a cartoon. You're thinking, does it match the story and does it match the flap? But in film, you're thinking, oh, am I leaning too far left in the frame? Is this lighting correct? Not even bringing into it, is my acting good? Which is a total other thing to think about. So that's a vastly more challenging thing, and I have huge respect for people who do it and who do it well. It's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, definitely. And for the fans out there, I don't want to skim over this because you did mention your music.
Yeah.
Where can they get a hold of it? Like, where can they purchase it?
Oh, it's everywhere. It's on iTunes. I'm pretty sure it's on Spotify. So people who are into Spotify, you can just check it out on Spotify. But I spent a lot of time on the packaging. So if you go to CD Baby and actually order a physical CD, I would love it because I spent a lot of time making sure that was part of telling the story too. That it was the story not just told within the CD, but the story of how the CD was made, which is a very interesting. I did it with one of my best friends from NYU, who was the producer on it and sang backup and did the piano and whatever. And I didn't have a lot of time, and neither did he. So we just took these weekends over 5 years in 6 different places that he was living or that I was living, and we recorded in the best situations we could. And I just think what we came up with is just amazing to me, considering sometimes we were in my apartment under a blanket, on a MacBook Pro. And I think it sounds, mostly because of him. I mean, I like the tunes that I wrote and I like all that, but mostly because of what he did. It just sounds like $1,000,000. So I would, if I were you, I would buy it on CD Baby. Just order it and they'll send it to you, and you can have the actual packaging, and I think you'll love it.
That sounds fantastic. I'll make sure to link that in the live chat for everybody out there.
Cool.
One more thing for the fans. Is there any place that they can stalk you in a nice way on the internet? Like, do you do Facebook or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have my website, which is kevintcollins.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm at Kevin T. Collins. Those are probably the best ways to keep track of me. And yeah, that's probably the answer to your question.
Fantastic. Well, since we're nearing the end of this interview, I was wondering if you'd be willing to participate in a 91.8 The Fan tradition.
Oh, absolutely. I love tradition. What do you got?
Fantastic. I love that you agreed to it before knowing what it was.
Sure. Well, we'll see.
We basically ask everyone, whether they work in voiceover or not, if they'd be willing to do a radio bump for us. The trick of it,
Oh, sure.
however, is that we do the takes live on air. So if you mess up, everybody hears it.
Okay. What's the line?
We basically ask if you could say, "Hello, my name is," you put your name there. "I do this," you can put whatever you want there. "And you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan."
You're tuned into. So say it one more time for me.
"Hello, my name is," "I do this," and "you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan."
Okay. Are you ready?
Yep.
Hello. My name is Kevin T. Collins, and I tell stories. You're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan.
Fantastic. Look at that. Not a single mess up.
Yeah, well.
You're in like the top 10% out of out of like 800 people. So congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you.
But for the listeners out there, is there any words of wisdom you want to leave them with? Any parting advice, dating advice, predictions for the end of the world? Anything fun like that?
Oh, my God, predictions for the end of the world. It may happen. Yeah, keep at it. You know, if there's one thing I've learned, and I've been in the business now almost 20 years. Well, I guess if you count community theater, I've been in the business for almost 40 years. But if there's one thing that I've learned, it's that persistence pays off, and you got to show up, and you got to keep showing up. And if you keep showing up, there's work out there for you. There is. It may not be the work you envisioned. It may not be the work you're dying to do, but maybe it'll turn into that. But if you keep showing up, there are stories to tell, and you can be a part of telling them.
That is fantastic advice. I love that. And thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us today. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure.
And for any of the fans out there that missed any of this interview, don't fret, you can find it on the website within the next few days. So keep your eyes peeled to 918thefan.com and your ears tuned to 91.8 The Fan, where we play everything you want and nothing you don't.